Anyway, good guy Necrit was visiting Riot's headquarters. Good guy Necrit had an interview with the Riot MMO developers. That's why we're watching the video, an interview with the Riot MMO developers. Because at the end of the day, League of Legends is boring. You know, League of Legends is boring. We need something new. We need to move on. And MMO, Riot's MMO, is going to be the next big thing. So the question is, how far did the developers progress in the development of the game itself?
So, on my journey to Riot's headquarters, I had a chance to talk to some of Riot's teams. And of course, one of those teams was Riot's MMO team.
Nice.
And while it was really awesome to talk to them, luckily we even had some time to do an interview. Unfortunately, the interview was recorded in one of their meeting rooms, which meant that it was very echoey. I mean,
Can we just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Sure. I'm VJ Tucker. I'm the EP of the MMO.
Fortunately, however, the world does have the technology to salvage audio, and so the final result should be totally fine. Just know that it is not a studio quality. It is literally my laptop and a USB microphone in a square room.
Good enough.
And of course, since it is hard to get some info on Riot's MMO, I tried to push them with the questions a little bit, just to see what we can learn. But I knew they wouldn't be able to talk about any specifics.
Yeah, we just need one question. When is it going to be released? That's it. That's one question that matters right now.
So my questions had to be as broad as possible. But even so, I was
Broad as possible. Will the game be released? Yes or no?
still trying to walk on the edge. Sometimes you'll see the devs laughing about the fact that I am very close to the line, and 3 times it actually happened. I asked a question which had to be cut out. But the follow-up conversations were fine. So be ready for the fact that sometimes there will be some edits and cuts and it will break the pacing. But ultimately, I am pretty happy with what I was able to put together. And honestly, I had an absolute blast talking to these guys.
Can we just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm VJ Tucker. I'm the EP of the MMO.
I'm Mark Yender. I'm the game design director for the project.
Greg Fallis, art director.
And I'm Ant Berners-Ladai. I'm a writer.
So, I might have made an oopsie. Strong start. I released the video. Kind of started an avalanche of hype out of nowhere. How did you guys take this? Was it you know, how much damage have I caused on accident?
Not even close. We thought it was awesome.
He's talking about the Riot MMO video. Yeah, that's the one. Basically, the world of Riot MMO is basically ready and we're just waiting for the development.
We immediately like shared it among the team. Like we watch it for inspiration as a reminder of like what player hype is for the space. Like more than anything, you raised the bar for us, which is
nice.
Awesome.
We love it, but we started to sweat a bit.
So like up until that point, we're in like a safe space where like you were kind of like fine because like people knew it was happening, but no one really took it seriously.
Yeah.
Have you actually taken any of the feedback you got so far into consideration? Like I don't know how many people really gave feedback. I mean, people did give feedback on the ML. Did you like take something into consideration already?
Yeah, we always have. I think that's one of the most.
That's why League of Legends is such an amazing game right now. That's why people love the game. That's why people cannot quit the game, because they're always taking feedback into consideration. Honestly, I'ma keep it a stack chat. I don't trust this company.
Important things that we can do is listen to our players along the way and figure out when we should respond and integrate it in and when we shouldn't.
Right.
That's the hard part of our jobs. But definitely ignoring the feedback is us failing.
So I mean, talking like factions, races, stuff like that, because you probably have to have an idea and stick to it, but then you hear different opinions from other people. Is it like something that you also take into consideration, even though it might go against your basic idea?
Roll it, answer.
You go. Like, you hear, every potential player wants something, and there's, hopefully millions of them, and everyone wants something different. And so it's impossible for us to give every person what they want. But, really often there's a lot of similar themes, right? And when we reduce it to the sort of core of like, what is the fantasy that people are looking for? What is the experience? We can then take that and say, what's the best version of that we can deliver? And even better, we're not just going to give people what they say they want. We're going to try and figure out how we can over deliver. How can we get something that blows their minds that like is also oh my god, that's exactly what I wanted. You know, that's the dream.
In-game cinematics, that's what we need. Yeah, in-game cinematics with Riot's music, that's what we need in the game. You deliver that, and it's 100% guaranteed, chat. Yeah, that these guys will over-deliver.
It's super important, that part. Not just giving people what they expect, or just like going, you got that, and this as well, and this. So that's really important.
That's the soul of what we're trying to do, is like ultimately like we're in service of trying to realize the dreams of our players, but that's not always exactly what they're asking for. Sometimes it is about extracting the essence. It's like, what is the magic that you're seeing that we haven't seen yet, and how do we create it?
Create Riot, League of Legends Classic servers, that's going to be the magic. No, 10 different servers, yeah. Or no, just stick with 3 different servers. Season 1 server, Season 3 server, and Season 5 server. Just these 3 servers, different servers, you know? Like PBE right now, everyone, doesn't matter your location, you can be in NA, you can be in Asia, you can be in Africa, it doesn't fucking matter. You can join PBE, you can play PBE, because PBE is the single server. Have that, but Season 1, Season 3, Season 5. Doesn't matter my location, if I can join the game, I can play the game as it was in Season 1, Season 3, and Season 5. Shit, that would be popular. Just saying.
And ultimately, I personally think that's Riot's superpower, especially like with League. We see it with Valorant, we see it with our games, how we respond to players. And the one thing we definitely can't do is dunk our head in the sand until we're shit.
Yeah,
And hopefully you get a little taste of that with, what we should.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw.
I have a low on expectation, it has to be better than WoW. You're setting the bar very low at this point, because WoW, we have to take into consideration the fact that WoW was released in 2004. That game is fucking 20 years old. So we know. It should be rather easy to surpass that bar.
Some things. Kidding. Literally, if I turn the camera like a little few inches, I'm gonna get nuked. So do it. So, one thing that's a big topic that I don't know if you can answer is, the big old talk about like factions and races, more specifically like separating the player base, because there are some MMOs who give you the freedom of like, you can play with anyone, you can, there are no barriers. And then there are others who actually like split the community very specifically into like, maybe 2 parts that are battling. What's your like very vague general idea without confirming anything on like this kind of philosophy? Yeah.
So there's this perfect saying I saw in one of the, a developer talk from one of the Zelda developers, which is, you can't just deliver exactly perfect realism or whatever. You're trying to shape something that feels real, feels believable, but is like actually making the thing you want. Right. And so like there are things that we want. We don't want, me and my best friend, we don't want people not to be able to play with each other. Obviously, that's like a bad, that's a problem. But we also want to, maybe capture the spirit and the kind of, one of the iconic elements of the League of Legends IP, where you've got this complex, factions, and there's, there's a lot of shades of gray, and there's a lot of interesting conflict, and there's a lot of, kind of ways that you or someone else might relate to different elements of it. And so we just try and take all of those factors, the things we want, the things that we want to be true in the experience or in the thematic or in the IP, and find a combination of them that like works.
You want all those things that people love about our world, like the conflicts that are already there and the rivalries and stuff. You want to play that through. You want to see that. But you also don't want to like lock people into like one side, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's really our job.
Not confirming anything.
That's a perfect example, because there's like, we talk about like 100 of these problems every day, right? There's just always so many things. There's always trade-offs, but it's like you just try to take the pieces together, find a way to make it work, and when we do well, you see the result, and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm getting what I want, and and the game is good, and it's fun to play, or something like that.
Yeah, but League of Legends is not fun to play. The game is not good. The only reason people are playing it is because they're fucking addicted to it, because there's nothing better on the market right now. That's the sad reality of it.
The general talk is always about like, when classic WoW came out, that one ignited the passion for like the very old school MMOs. Yeah. Yep. It's kind of interesting how when classic WoW came out, it like once again became the king of MMOs, and like everyone suddenly realized that like all the innovations that came from the other MMOs weren't really enough to like give the MMO genre actually more value.
Yeah.
So what I got from this general idea, is like you're trying to make like a mix of like staying true to the core idea of MMOs while iterating in some ways.
I think it's really important that we look at what is working in the market and then also evolve the expectations to see where we're going. And if you look at where WoW started, like classic MMO, I think all of us played many, many, many hours of classic WoW. And then you look at how the genre evolved over the course of post-classic WoW era, they were all chasing WoW. And so they were all looking at one specific thing and trying to make a better version of that thing. And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to say like, okay, what went right during that period? And what has changed in the games industry and our players' expectations up until that point? And look at both of those lenses and craft something that feels like it's the right evolution of it.
The storyline. The only thing that was amazing was the storyline, because when it comes down to WoW, WoW was growing throughout 2 expansions. First of all, we had the classic WoW, then we had the Burning Crusade, then we had the Wrath of the Lich King. During the third expansion, the second expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, WoW was at its peak. Then, straight up the story ended and everything went downhill afterwards. Yeah, they were trying different expansions with different shenanigans, but it never reached that same peak that we had during the Wrath of the Lich King, which implies, at least that's my theory, what we need is a good story. Do we have a good story in League of Legends? Yes. Are players familiar with that story? No. That's the issue, bro. Sure, granted, what Riot is doing sometimes is that they're giving us a bit of stories and interactive menus and shops and events, as they call them in League of Legends. But most of the player base are just skipping through those fucking dialogues and just getting the rewards. Just simple as that. Sure, granted, there are different games. We have the Silas game, we have the Ruination game, we have a Bilgewater game. But those are separate entities, Not 100% of the player base is dropping League of Legends and playing those games to get themselves familiar with those other IPs. Which means, when MMO will come out, no one will be familiar with the story. Because there is no prehistory to it. So the question is, can they build a good story in there? And if there is a good story, then maybe can they succeed with the development of the game in the later years with expansions and keeping the game alive? Maybe.
So I think ultimately many people in the industry are seeing similar things, and so we're actually hoping that we can learn from some of the other games that launch in the meantime. But we do think it's going to have some changes and evolutions to that formula without completely throwing it out just for the sake of it.
Just personal take. I actually love the idea that the game has dedicated servers, because one thing that happened in WoW later on is at the moment they gave us like random matchmaking and stuff like that. That was a breaking point where if you are an asshole on a server, it didn't matter really. There were never nothing really happened to you. But if you are on a dedicated server and you behave badly, people know it about you, and it kind of like forms a really cool community. But it's kind of interesting that these days, I don't think there is a single MMO that actually has this whole structure.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Mark nailed it early on when we were talking about trade-offs. Is like, ultimately, you can build games in different approaches, but they have really different trade-offs about that sense of identity and the sense of community that gets created. But then when you start to commoditize human interactions, and like you're the same as any other bot that's walking by me, then you lose a lot of that. Megaserver also has some risk and approaches. We actually have an engineer that worked on Guild Wars 2 and designed a lot of the Megaserver work. It has some of the flaws and risks in that space. And the one thing that we definitely don't want to do is try and solve these solutions for absolutely everybody. We do want to have opinionated takes that have some trade-offs, but a lot of that essence of community and people feeling important and actually having these interactions matter with other people, those are values that we're excited to chase.
Now, I'm not gonna go into like races and classes. I think that's a very much dead end that we can't really talk about. But when it comes to the world, you probably did take into consideration the scale of the world and like how you're gonna approach it. Are you leaning more towards like segmenting the world and kind of like play the safe route where you have a lot of open spaces, or are you ready to like round up like a piece of the content and like ship it in its entirety? You don't even have a question, you can talk about it all. What's your approach to like, the world at launch?
Ultimately, one of the most important things for us is to realize the world of Runeterra that exists in our players' hearts. We are those people. Like we want to be in the world and we want to see it and we want to experience it. the path for this MMO in the long term will have that full world of Runeterra realized. So for us, it's just a question of how we get there, what the steps are, whether we start small, whether we start broad. We have some takes about where we want to go, but we have our North Star of like that full version of Runeterra, and we know we're going to get there. So it's just a question of the steps along the way.
I have two more questions. One is, when it comes to Riot, they always have like a very specific, almost specific artistic style, where it's like very stylized, very cartoony, but not exactly cartoony. Is it like is it something that you want to stick to in general? Do like very style rather than realistic? Is like the classic stylized style on the table for the MMO?
Hopefully I can say it's you.
That is a solid question, bro. What kind of style that's going to be in the MMO? Because when it comes down to Riot's games, they are known to be cartoonish a bit. When it comes down to cartoonish, the prime example for me for a popular game that is cartoonish was fucking Fortnite. Granted, Fortnite was Battle Royale, but I don't think Blizzard Riot will go that style of cartoonish towards the MMO in general. But also, I refuse to believe that's going to be League of Legends level of cartoonish. They have to go somewhere in between there. Also, take into consideration the models of Wild Rift. They have models in there. Granted, those models are slightly better. But what if? What if they're going to go with the Wild Rift approach, eh?
I don't know what you're gonna say.
So we will be familiar, but something unique.
All right.
It works.
This is a place where it's a big damn shame that you can't see the stuff that he's working on, because it's so good.
Last question that I think we can talk about is how did this project start? Because usually at Riot, all the big things start as passion projects, be it, Game Modes on League, EFT, really, Legends of Runeterra. Well, it's all like passion projects. How did the MMO project even start?
I think the fairest way to say it is that massive parts of this company have been dreaming of making this game for our players for a long time. Obviously, Meryl trolled the world by asking whether an MMO should exist. The reason I came to Riot 7 years ago was to make an MMO. I would say different versions of like this space, what we've been thinking about and moving it forward, have existed in all of our hearts for a very long time. And eventually, I know. And honestly, eventually we just all started to get a bunch of those people together. We're like, now is the time. We've got to make that investment. And obviously, I can't tell you any dates or people, but it's been something that I think all of us have been chasing for a really long time.
And players have just been asking for it for such a time. It's just like, gotta listen to that.
Yeah, we're
Obviously the magic when it's just like MMO win.
Yeah.
One of the things I really do appreciate, though, like transparently speaking, is that the thing that we know about Riot, like one of the top line values, is we're not going to ship something that's perfectly fine. And so it took us a little while to get to the point.
I do enjoy that Riot is fucking aware of the fact that they are not shipping something that is perfectly fine. League of Legends, not fine. Valorant, not fine. Other games, not fine. But you know what, yeah, they're still sending them.
Point where we're willing to start the project, but it was waiting until we're like, okay, now we have enough with the work on lore. We have enough in terms of the right people that is like, now is the time to finally make this and do it right. That was the thing that held off, is that we're like, company wasn't at the right place, the people weren't at the right place, the IP wasn't at the right place. Once we get all of those, Meryl's like, we need to do this thing. The thing that is most important to us really is that we make something that is exceptional, that is worthy of our players and the dreams that they have, and that it's okay that it takes a while.
Right.
That's the biggest risk, is that we're like, hey, we're doing this thing, and people are like, it's been 6 months, why haven't you shipped the thing yet? And it's like, well, I don't know. We're in service of all of you. We're in service.
Yeah, D&D, this is my policy, bro. After CD Projekt Red released the Cyberpunk, I mean, what we all learned as the gamers is that, just give them time. If developers need time to develop their product, if they need more time to create a good game, just let them cook. The No Man's Sky, same example, bro. Hello Games. They were on a deadline by Sony. Sony said, here's the deadline. We can push it to August, but give us the game. Sure, they gave us the game was fucking dog shit, absolute fucking dog shit. But granted, in the following years, that they patched up and they fixed the game, they actually made the game as it should have been during the release. Same goes for Cyberpunk. Developers needed another year or two to actually create the game. Fallout 76, oh my, I'm not even talking about Fallout 76, that was a meme on its own. But sure, at the end of the day, I see that developers are running a risk of stalling the game for too long. Sure, granted, you may want to have a perfect game on the initial release, but if you've stalled the game for so long that the interest of the public dies in that game, sure, you can release the fucking best game ever. But what does it matter if it's only Timmy, the only player who's in the server? Because no one else gives a fuck about this game because it died. The interest in the game died, let's say, 5 years ago. So, you know, that's a bit of a risky thing in here.
Service of trying to make the best thing for you, and sometimes a little fire under our asses to get it out the door isn't a bad thing.
No pressure, but the Riot MMO right now is probably the most anticipated one in the market right now.
No pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like we've got the people who are at least gonna rise to the challenge and fucking fight that fight.
I mean, you all said many times that
It's kind of clean they didn't say shit about the game. Yeah, because if they will say shit about the game, it's going to be the same thing as happened to No Man's Sky. During every single interview, they were saying that, yeah, you can land on a comment, yeah, you can do that, when the game wasn't even developed to that stage when you can do that. So a few years later, when the game released, 95% of that shit was not even in the game. So this is why Riot is taking a smart approach and being kinda vague, kinda abstract during the interviews. They're not saying shit, because saying shit in the interviews will be considered as a promise. Yeah, we'll have, let's say, flying dragons that you can ride. And when the game releases, if there are no dragons that you can fly about, you're going to be mad. Because, bro, there was an interview a few years ago where you said flying dragons are going to be my rides. And that doesn't work right now. What the fuck, Riot? That's why Riot is being careful right now.
the team is really stacked. Yeah, like you probably have veterans to like I don't know what teams you really like all of you worked on. I assume it was a lot.
It's incredible.
It's really where are you guys?
Can you actually like say all of you like what actually
you worked on?
Yeah.
Let's see. What are you? Star Wars Galaxies, an unannounced MMO inside of Ensemble, Age of Empires 3, Halo Wars.
Nice.
Orcs Must Die, Hero Academy, Words with Friends. An unannounced MMO prototype inside of Riot a long time ago, Wild Rift, and then now this.
Obviously, I'm not this bad, but like, I mean, I worked on. Yeah, I know, no kidding. Yeah, exactly. Let him flex. Like, it's good. I mean, I worked on League of Legends for like almost a decade. I worked on Call of Duty before that, and a bunch of, smaller, kind of AA games for a while before that.
But it can't be understated how important it is to have people who like know everything about the history of our players and the IP. Yeah. Like, that's massive, in many ways more important than like a bunch of different bands.
Yeah. So God, many years, many different things.
Yeah, it's so many.
Legends of Runeterra. Let's see, Sims. I've worked on The Sims for many years. Some other MMOs, some old ones, like one that eventually got out, Gods and Heroes, back in the day. And like a number of small projects.
Well, to be honest, whatever Riot will make, we will definitely know two things. One, people will play it. Two, people will blame Riot. Well, obviously, we will blame Riot. What else am I supposed to do as a player? Blame myself? Fuck no, I'll blame Riot.
Right. Yeah. And most of my stuff before here, I've been here for 9 years. I was working freelance for quite a lot of years, writing books and doing things like that, doing some world building here and there for different games. And then most of my background before that comes from like tabletop. So like I worked at Games Workshop, so I was a games designer and a writer and an art manager over there and working on like Warhammer 40k, that kind of stuff. That was my sort of kickstart into the industry really.
One of the things that I love most about this team, other than the fact that they're huge dreamers and like have massive ambitions, is that everybody has had their story in the games industry, which means nobody has the chip on their shoulder. Right? Everybody is like, whatever is the right thing to do for the game, whatever is the right thing to do for players. There's not conversations about ego or identity or my idea or your idea. It's just like, all right, how do we make the best thing? Right. And that is the most refreshing thing I've ever experienced on a game team.
And so they created Yumi.
surrounded by people smarter than me, and that's just like the best. So cool. Which is good, because this challenge is huge.
Oh yeah. You can't get, you honestly can't go bigger than MMO.
Imagine playing PUBG and blaming Riot. Bro, that was what I was doing when I was playing Diablo. If the server would crash, I would blame Riot. It doesn't matter that Diablo was developed by Blizzard, different company, way different company. I would still blame Riot because fuck Riot.
Yeah.
Like that's actually just the biggest genre.
Yeah.
You can probably tackle.
And so we put on like one of the IPs that has the most expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
like no pressure.
It's literally the harvest travel.
It really is.
Let's go.
Alright. Well, that was a really awesome interview where we did actually get some answers. We had straight to get fired.
What answers?
More than I expected, so I really do appreciate all of you, and I'm gonna do some funny editing, and I'm just gonna cut it off so you can just say goodbye.
Bye.
Nice. So what kind of answers we got? That they're still working on the MMO. That's the only answer I got. Everything else was kind of vague. Kind of vague, kind of abstract. It is what it is.